When we last saw Mike in Better Call Saul, he was out trying, it appeared, to achieve suicide by thug. So he was getting beaten down by a group of thugs and suddenly blacks out and wakes up in a strange Mexican village. Well, the whole thing, his rescue and recovery was orchestrated by Gus Fring. And more so than the Kim and Jimmy story of this episode, which is significant, of course, this is also very telling of the development of the relationship between Mike and Gus, in that Gus is constantly manipulating people, and he has eyes everywhere. And there's very few people that you can actually say he respects. But Mike is definitely one of those people that he respects. And Mike is in a bad place after what he was forced to do with the German worker who had worked on the facility underground that they're working on, which will eventually become the lab that Walter White will develop his blue meth in. And Mike had to cross that line and kill this man. And this really nearly broke him, and he nearly destroys himself, and Gus doesn't want that to happen. So he saves him with the use of this village where there's a doctor there, and it turns out he's funded this whole thing, and there's a monument in the middle of it, and of course the title is I don't speak Spanish, but it looks to be dedicated to Max. So it's like Dedicado a Max, I guess. Max being his former partner who approached the Salamancas years ago in the idea of initiating a business deal through trafficking their drugs and through their restaurant and all this sort of stuff. Well, it didn't go well, as they were a bit insulted, especially since they assumed that the two were gay lovers, and maybe they were. It's never quite spelled out, but come on. That has to be what was going on. So that's my reading of it. So I'm going with they were lovers. And, of course, Max is murdered right in front of Gus, and he's forced to watch as, he bleeds out into the swimming pool and all that in Breaking Bad. So everything since then is Gus Fring's revenge plot, which he ultimately achieves, but then it turns out to be his undoing. And that's the overall lesson, because Breaking Bad's called Breaking Bad, but that's still the plot. Even with Better Call Saul, there's always these opportunities at redemption. You could walk away and all this sort of thing. But even when you're sympathetic to someone, you can certainly be sympathetic to Gus's desires here and wanting revenge. But ultimately, it will destroy him. Even though, in a lot of ways, you can see he's dedicated this little village that's helping out these little kids and everything. Like, it's all really nice and clean and everything. And that's a good way to dedicate to the memory of, his fallen friend, lover, what have you. And but instead, no, this is Gus Fring. And the thing of it is, if you rewatch that scene where Gus is playing a younger version of himself, and he's a different man. He's actually a bit excited about this opportunity and all this stuff and everything. And then, but to now, he's this cold, calculating monster. And it's all very telling there. Meanwhile, Mike, of course, he sees in him a similar approaches here, and that Mike is a bit of a broken man after what happened to his son, and ultimately the revenge he took on the officers who screwed his son over. And so Gus sees also, of course, in Mike his obvious talent. And that's the skills that he wants, and he thinks Mike is the guy who can help him out. There's plenty of thugs around, but they're not that trustworthy, and they're not Mike. And Gus is aware of this, and that's why he's trying to save Mike, and he basically spells it out to him. You understand revenge, and that's what I'm after. And so there he's actually being more open and honest to Mike than anyone else about what he's really up to. Everybody else, he's the boss and they're following him, and this is their schemes and plots they do for the purpose of their drug business and whatnot. But actually it's really down to two at this point as to what's really going to happen. And it's just, and even though you're not going to see that fulfilled within this series because it's already been done through Breaking Bad, but the good Lord, the depth and the quality of the richness of these characters, it's just, it can't be overstated about how it's just so good to watch, this play out. And the performances, of course, are excellent. These are probably the roles of a lifetime for these actors. And it's just such a joy to see. And I keep coming back to this as well, is because there have been a lot of prequels of certain franchises and genres, and yet this one, it says, well, it's hard to do. You're never going to quite get it right here. I'm sure I'm missing this or that, but I'm not finding any fault with it. And the idea that you can explore storylines here and you don't have to be lazy about it and just ignore what's going to happen, which has already been established, and then just go off the rails and make crap up and go that, far aground of it. You don't have to do that. These guys really show you how it's done, and it's just amazing. Meanwhile, of course, poor Kim, who is probably the most angelic and innocent of the group, and yet she's in love with Jimmy, now Saul Goodman. And in this point, this is all her fault. It's not on Jimmy. It's or Saul Goodman. She turns to him. He even offers her an opportunity. He says, look, you've done what you can do, but let's move on, because going any further is going to be dirty. And you did the best you could, but this is about it for this old man who doesn't want to leave his property. And she's turning on her actual bosses in Casa Verde and all this. She's violating all kinds of, ethics and law, really. What's going on here? And what does she do? She doubles down and says, well, Jimmy, let's keep going. And he's like, well, all right. So he actually reaches out to Mike and wants him to help out, but he goes to this other thug, really. And it's already too late. Kim's made her choice, like so many other people. She's a decent and good-hearted person, and that's kind of what leads her down the road. She wants to save this man. She feels so bad and so sorry for him, even though he's wrong. He just wants his house. That's what he's got. He doesn't want another one, even though he could get a nice one, probably a nicer one, with the money they'd pay him and all that. She just feels so sorry for him, and it did something to her when he berated her again, even though he was wrong, and she even pointed that out. But her heart and it can be so manipulated, and it's sad, because she's a really sweet, decent person. But it's one of these things about, her heart, her goodness, her love can just ruin her. And looks like that's exactly what's going to happen. But at this point, it's not on Saul Goodman. That's on Kim. But it's just like, all the way with Walter White. He had every opportunity to walk away, and he just wouldn't. And again here too, it's right there. Saul Goodman says, look, we don't have to go any further. And she says, nah, let's do it. So it's just, and again, so well done, so well performed, and just so good. So another fantastic episode of Better Call Saul, and you better watch Better Call Saul. Because if you don't, you're really missing out. So anyway, there you go. Thank you for watching and listening. Check out the link description below for all the good stuff, my stores, my podcast, the other channel you can watch my videos on, and all that. And we'll do it again soon. Bye-bye.